Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Mike Norvell, the Florida State Seminoles, got extremely active in the transfer portal over the last couple of weeks and months. And Dill, we've broken down these commitments as they've come in. But after getting some more film, Sione Lolohea is probably my favorite transfer portal addition Florida State made. And you take a look at replacing Jared Verse. And I'll come out and say this, Sione Lolohea, probably not the pass rusher that Jared Verse was for Florida State, but we always appreciated the most what Jared Verse brought to this Florida State defense in the run game. And Sione Lolohea brings that caliber of run defense. Really excited about Sione Lolohea. Want to get into the film, talk about what he brings to this Florida State defense. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. A massive shout out to the Florida State fans, whether we're talking that 2023 season, whether we're talking what they're doing in the transfer portal, on the recruiting trail. Cannot thank you guys enough for rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And Dill, I know you've gotten a lot of filming on Sione Lolohea over the past couple of days. I'll give you the T-box. What does he bring to this Florida State defense?
I mean, kind of what you said, not necessarily a super dynamic pass rusher, but a very disruptive pass rusher.
Yes.
Like, I don't necessarily expect to see 10 plus sacks on the stat sheet for Sione Lolohea, but in terms of collapsing pockets, being disruptive, causing a little bit of havoc, he does do a really good job with that. Obviously, Patrick Payton's kind of the guy, I think, in this defensive line that you think can really stuff the stats sheet. I mean, the athleticism, the smoothness, that's not really Lolohea's game. But again, very disruptive. And you're right, against the run, that's where he really shines. He's just really too powerful.
The two things that kind of popped out to me watching the film is, one, I think the statistics of Sione Lolohea are probably not indicative to how disruptive he is as a pass rusher. And we're going to get into the film and what he brings from that pass rusher standpoint. But like you said, against the run, that's where he really shines. And you look at how this Florida State defense, specifically those edge rushers, are constructed. I mean, you have your heavy-handed guys like Sione. You go get Tamiwa from West Virginia, and then you have your Ferraris, for lack of a better term, right? The guys that can win on the edge, probably going to be the guys that are stuffing the stat sheet in Patrick Payton and Marvin Jones. Really nice blend of skill sets for this Florida State edge rusher group. Now, Dill, getting into the film, this is his film against Utah, and I would encourage Florida State fans to just go check him out against Utah. That was a game that was extremely impressive. Now, what do we always say about Jared versus his ability to win at the point of attack and really kind of do what he wants with offensive tackles? Now, you're going to see Sione Lolohea lined up at the bottom of your screen here, and he's just going to add. They're going to try to run off tackle here. He's going to put this tackle 3 yards in the backfield. You talk about blowing up plays in the run game. Sione Lolohea's power that he has in his hands, he's extremely hard to run to his side because he's walking tackles consistently into the backfield, making this running back really just stretch it out, letting that defense flow in. He's a game wrecker in the run game, and I think that's probably what I love most about his game.
But what I think is notable is it's easy power. It's not like head down, kind of just like putting your head into the tackle's chest or something and then not trying to make a play. It's using his hands, being in good position, but being in control. Made a lot of tackles, and I think that is a difference than you see a lot of guys do. It's like they don't want to get moved off the ball. Fine, so they duck their head. They play really, really low to the point where it's like, well, you're not really playing football at this point to make any tackles. You just don't want to get moved off the ball. I mean, the easy power he has to stand that tackle up, shed the block, and then go look to make a play. Obviously, force that play really, really wide and make it. I think you saw that consistently, and that probably stems mostly from what you said, just really easy power.
You talked about getting off blocks. That's the next thing I want to talk about, right? The easy power, but you said it best. Like, we're looking to get off our blocks and make plays. This rep right here working at the top of your screen right now. And again, just the easy power that you see off the ball. Again, that's a left tackle for Utah, put him right into the backfield. Now we're going to get off this block. We're going to keep our head up, make a play, and kind of just be an enforcer in the run game. Now, Dill, I think the next thing that I want to talk about with Sione Lolohea is when you have all the power that you have in your hands, can you win with kind of some quickness and a little bit of more finesse? And he certainly brings that to the table as well. You take a look at this piece of film right here working, bottom of your screen here, and you see the ability to, I'm just going to ghost this tackle. I'm going to win with my speed, with my finesse, using my hands, get into the backfield and make a play. Not only the power that he has, but also his ability to finesse and use his speed, I think is a massive attribute to Sione.
Yeah, that play looks a lot like, I mean, I think a lot of Florida States recognize that from Jared Verse. I mean, that little quick swim to the inside, I feel like he used a ton, was really disruptive with it. And again, it's just kind of completing that package in terms of what he has, especially against the run, where he's got a lot of power, obviously, but moves really good for that size. And you're right, has good handwork that he can use to make those like high impact plays where you're winning immediately and getting a 2-3 yard TF.
That's how you win football games, right? The more negative plays you create, the more kind of second, third, and longs you create. That is where you want to be if you're Florida State defense. Now, last rep I want to talk about working a little bit more towards that 3-tech position inside of that tackle. And Dill, you're going to see the combination of two things, right? You're going to see him use his hands to beat the right tackle, and then you're going to see him blow up the tight end, kind of best of both worlds. We got the speed, we got the finesse, but we're also going to make this tackle miss. We're going to explode into this tight end, absolutely bench him out, and then make our play. He gets off blocks, and Dill, as Michigan fans, we always said one of the things that we loved most about those Michigan defensive linemen is not only how disruptive they were, but how good they were at block destruction and getting off blocks and making plays as defensive linemen. You see those kind of flashes to Sione Loleha's game.
And that's what you really do want to see that from your defensive linemen, not just standing blocks up, but you want to see them getting off, because that at the end of the day, I mean, linebackers can only do so much in terms of getting up to line of scrimmage. I mean, defensive linemen start there. If they're the ones making tackles, it goes a long way in terms of getting your average yards per carry down on defense and doing those things and putting teams in those positions you want to be in, second and long, third and long, and then you can make the plays that Florida State made last year with those like fumbles and picks and all those big plays.
And I love, because one of the things that you maybe are a little bit worried about with Jared Verse leaving is, all right, Jared Verse was always that guy that offenses didn't run to his side. Offenses would try to run to Patrick Payton's side, and Patrick Payton, as good of a pure pass rusher, he is one of the best in the country, probably leaves a little bit to be desired in terms of what he can do in the run game. Two things. One, Patrick Payton, I think going into year 4, probably takes another step in terms of his physicality at the point of attack and being a force in the run game. But also, you're going to have another guy in Sione Lolohea that teams are not going to want to run to his side because how disruptive he can be. Now, we spent a lot of time talking about what he does against the run. I think certainly his best asset that he's bringing to Florida State. He's a guy that, Dill, I think you said it best, right? Looking at Sione Loleha's stat sheet is probably not the best way to get your sense of how disruptive and how good of a pass rusher he is. Because you said it best. He's not necessarily a stat sheet stuffer. He is a guy that is extremely disruptive as a pass rusher. 2nd and 3 against Washington State, working on the top of your screen against this right tackle. And you see his ability to use his hands when inside him. When you have the power that you have to go speed the power and right through tackles, you can set them up and start using your hands. A nice little inside rip, has a high motor, continuing to work to the quarterback, sacking Cam Ward, something that Florida State fans hope to see in 2024. I really like what he can do as a pass rusher. And Dill, quite frankly, think he's just a little bit underrated as a pass rusher as well.
And I think there's a part of it where, again, he's probably not that same like ultra burst, ultra bendy, like that type of guy you see like a Von Miller, where, yeah, they put up big numbers in the stat department for sacks. I mean, more of a power, more of a get into guys in Clapp's pockets, which, again, that's really disruptive in its own right. It doesn't show up on a stat sheet, but I mean, those are important things. If you want to have a good pass rushing unit, you need guys who can do it like Patrick Payton or Marvin Jones, where you're kind of right. They're Ferraris. They do a really good job getting on the edge, being a little flexible. Not Loleha's game, but again, if you want to be that dynamic pass rushing unit as a whole, I think you need guys who can collapse pockets, create or essentially take away rushing lanes for quarterbacks. That's a lot of issue when you have two guys who just go on the edge all the time.
And you talk about kind of highlighting the disruption, only 3.5 sacks for him at Oregon State in 2023. Okay, you probably get the feel that he's probably not an elite pass rush. You look at the quarterback hurries, 27 quarterback hurries. That is a phenomenal number for a guy that's more of a run defending edge rusher like Sione Lolohea. And this kind of gives you a feel of, I think, what really Sione Lolohea brings to the table. Now, I don't know whose idea it was to have Micah Bernard at the running back spot, try to pick up Sione Lolohea as a pass rusher. It was a bad idea, right? This is a guy that working the bottom of your screen. Power. Like, he's not going to get the sack, but you talk about blowing up a play. I mean, this running back did not stand a chance. The power that he has, rushing a throw, obviously, Nate Johnson just throwing the ball away. those are the type of things that he brings. And Dill, quite frankly, you go to the film and you see a lot of sacks that, I mean, we're probably left on the table. And if it kind of goes a little bit of a different way, I think we could be talking about Sione Lolohea having 8+ sacks for Florida State in 2024 if he gets home on a few more of those pass rushes. But at the end of the day, kind of digging into this edge rusher position, I love the blend that you have. And I think a lot of people are going to look at Florida State and say, all right, you lost Jared Verse. That pass rush probably not going to be as good as it was. Now, that y'all know Jared Verse is one of my favorite players in college football. Certainly not a shot at him. He's going to be impossible to replace. But I'm looking at this edge rusher group and say, all right, Patrick Payton, arguably one of the best pure pass rushers you have in the country. You bring in a guy like Tamiwa Duraje from West Virginia, guy that's got some juice to him, kind of the heavy-hander guy like Sione Lolohea, Marvin Jones Jr., and Sione. That's 4 guys that you feel really good about at that edge rush position. And again, people are going to assume Florida State, with all that talent going to the NFL, not going to be the same team. They reloaded in the transfer portal in a meaningful way.
Yeah, no, bringing in 3 really good quality pass rushers, and I think you're right, who are bring something different to the table. Because again, you kind of watch. There's teams that have a bunch of good ones, all do the same thing. It doesn't look the same. It's not as disruptive as it probably could be. I mean, I think you're right. A really well-crafted room, have some really, really good players, too. I think that's what people sleep on. Like, these guys, they're going to be NFL players. Sione Lolohea is going to be an NFL guy.
That's a classic, like, Oregon State player that just flies under the radar. All right, nice commitment for Florida State from Oregon State. Then you dive into the films, like, this guy is an absolute monster on the defensive side of the football. Dill, kind of reminds me of what Michigan's edge rusher room looked like last year, where you have your heavy-handed guys like a Derek Moore, and then on the other side, you have your Ferrari NASCAR guys in Josiah Stewart. Really like how this Florida State edge rushing group is shaping up. Can't wait to hear some of the spring practice nuggets that we're going to get. We'll cut it there. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.